Welcome to a special HouseCast with a deeper dive into the gameplay of SAROS. Today with me I have Mitja, who is the...
Associate Design Director for Level Design.
Right, so you look after the levels with your team. And then Henri.
Everyone, I'm Henri, the lead game designer on SAROS.
And he knows a lot about the game design side of things. So the reason we're here is that Housemarque is a mostly gameplay-centric company, so we take pride in all aspects of game design, but the game play and feel of it is quite central to what we do. So that's why we're here, to kind of unearth some of the secrets and designs and intricacies that went into SAROS. Which biome are you playing here, Mitja?
Yeah, it's the third biome in the game, so...
The Shattered Descent,
Yes,
if I'm correct. That's
yeah.
right.
The third full biome.
Yeah.
We have the prologue before that as well.
It looks, you got a nice wall over there on the background, and a lot of these vistas, which are quite new to SAROS, which we didn't have as much in Returnal because it was more of a confined game. But here you can have a bit of more of open air environments that you can look at.
Exactly, yeah. We have the landmarks like this tower that you're working your way towards, and eventually you will reach it, maybe even ascend it.
Right. No, but it's a visually striking new quality that we have in the game, that it gives you a little bit more world building aspects, and then of course a direction to run and gun towards.
Yeah, also a journey, right? The player is always on a journey towards something. It's a nice layer, a nice addition, like you said, from Returnal.
So what about if you think about level modularity, usually when you enter a level like this, the introduction to the level is the same, but then the first crossroads you take will start being randomized slightly. Any comments on how that's now maybe different or expanded?
Yeah, so I'm playing my first run through the biome, so it's a curated experience. It's what we call the first play experience. We want to make sure that we introduce new enemies, new hazards. We want to onboard the player to the biome. And then at any point, if I play through the biome again, we go to a more varied experience. The whole biome will always be constructed from individual pieces that were handcrafted, but the order they will appear in, it's never going to be the same again after this point.
Oh, unless you reset to default settings and play again.
If you start a fresh run with fresh settings, which is easier now with the 3 game slots that we have.
Yeah,
it's a nice addition. I like it
for sure.
And those yellow things that you're now getting from the enemies, that's the new sort of money lucinites.
Yeah, that's basically our XP system. So how do you pull the player forwards and towards where the player kit works the best? Also, the incentive needs to be there too. So in SAROS, Arjun is on this planet because they're collecting lucinites. So that has to be the player's #1 goal in their second experience too. So currency, i.e. XP in this case, it drops from the enemies, but it also escapes the gravity of the planet if you don't collect it in time.
So has the system changed from Returnal at all? Because there you also collect currency that escapes.
I mean, it blinks out. It's just not necessarily, it's not a new idea. It is trying to recontextualize the blinking into something that results in a bit more emergent gameplay. So there's a lot more verticality in our levels in SAROS compared to Returnal.
Yeah.
So, as the money is flying out or the XP is flying out, you relying on your kit and your extended movement kit allows you to still grab it as it's flying out. But other than that, it's very much this don't fix what isn't broken type of a feature.
If it works.
Yeah.
What about this encounter here? There's a little shield going around. This is the first elite encounter, I think, in the level, or?
The first, encounter outside the first biome. So we wanna again gradually introduce the threats in the game. You can notice already on the minimap the icon that the enemy has is
Right, that's a little
unique. Yeah.
small red king icon.
And then what that means is that the base enemy has a modifier that makes it stronger. So it's not only about increasing the damage output or the HP, it's also adding some modifiers to the enemies, and that's what makes them elite. So more challenging for sure.
And are those modifiers usually randomized?
They are always randomized, except for this
The
one.
first run.
Curated.
Again, we want to curate the first experience.
Well, that's good to know. And overall, are we making sure that there's better rewards as well, or is it more about just getting some variety in terms of the gameplay when you have these elites?
Well, it's multiple things, right? We want to make sure that the experience has some peaks, so unexpected moments happening, right? Otherwise, the experience can become very flat. So this is one of those moments. And defeating the elite should also ensure you getting some more powerful items. So after I defeat it, if I manage to, it should drop a power weapon, for example, maybe something else as well. So it will help me ahead.
Indeed. How can you see early on in the development cycle if the feel of the game is hitting the right marks? What kind of things do you look for? And is it, I'm guessing a lot of it's based on the feel that we had in Returnal and then tweaking it slightly to one way or another, or correct me if I'm wrong.
So it really depends on a feature. So one of the things that I find we did really well in Returnal is basically find a camera distance and an angle that supports the fast-paced experience where you kind of want to feel like as a player you want to feel like you can constantly be on the move and be confident while moving. So those are things that we don't necessarily need to reinvent again. But when we look at things like game feel as a whole, if you compare SAROS to Returnal from game feel standpoint, SAROS is quite more responsive of an experience compared to Returnal.
And why is that?
It boils down to basically how long does it take the player to do a full rotation on their axis when they're
right, so
running
180
full blast into one direction. How quickly they can rotate, accelerate, how quickly we transition from strafing or different animation set or movement set basically to a new one. And those are the things that we find only by meticulously iterating and testing our features in game. So in terms of like responsiveness, or basically the way I always boiled it down to where does the feel come from? It comes from responsiveness, feedback, and celebration. And we want to basically make the player feel as confident as possible when they're presented with these like bullet problems and like very difficult encounters. And the controls should never feel like they're getting into in your way as a player.
So let's say early in the development cycle you felt like, hey, now we've improved slightly on the Returnal formula and we have more of an identity here. What then takes you to defining those features that are new or stand out that will in the end complement that? But I'm guessing for people who are used to one thing, these will be exactly kind of flipping everything. And I'm kind of pushing this towards the shield, which is now central to the gameplay. But it could be another feature that you're thinking of.
So, yeah, innovation happens in increments. Biggest gameplay innovation for, by far, is the shield in SAROS. So when we're looking at the player kit as a whole, we want to build the internal confidence to a feature to a point where it can match up or live up to the already established very good experiences that Returnal had, for example.
Right.
So like the progenesis for the shield was that it needs to feel like it belongs in a game like Returnal. SAROS is a spiritual successor to Returnal, but only in the sense of like the gameplay sensibilities, like speaking as someone who represents gameplay to a degree. So, yeah, to rephrase, from my side, it is basically asking the question, what would a feature like the Soltari shield look like in Returnal?
Yeah.
And you take it from there. So the next obvious step, at least for me personally, was to keep building on things that we validated during Returnal. For example, the alt-fire, utilizing the DualSense to bring out a new weapon type or a way to engage with combat. We wanted to make the power weapons basically we wanted to make the alt-fire a mechanic that we own as almost like a progression path in SAROS. That means that they need to be given a more central role than just alt-fire, and that's where power weapons were born out of. But when you iterate on a feature like the shield, and you realize that instead of now working on a game that is about avoiding obstacles and being in an obstacle course, we're inviting the player to interact with bullets.
Yeah, which changes a lot.
The first immediate iteration after that is you blocking bullets, generating power, or reducing the cooldown of your alt-fire. And that is the second gameplay loop that then carries the hour to hour.
Indeed. So just to explain slightly further, we do have Returnal. What you got used to is that you have a singular weapon at a given time.
Yeah, that has an alt-fire built into it,
right,
or randomly rolled.
And now we have your main weapon that has an alt-fire to it, and they have different varieties similar to Returnal.
Yeah, we basically call them... SAROS is recontextualizing alt-fire in the sense that each primary weapon has a second state, which is our version of... SAROS' version of the alt-fire.
Right.
But when you engage the trigger further, you bring up your power weapon.
Which is another weapon that you can swap out, similar to your primary weapon.
That has its own traits and progressions, etc.
Indeed. And the power weapons are always fueled by collecting bullets.
Gaining power and collecting and absorbing bullets is the main driver there.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So it's just good to kind of clarify, because it's an extended kit compared to Returnal.
Oh, absolutely.
But again, it's very much tied into the use of the shield, which is the foremost added feature.
Absolutely.
If you ask us, at least.
Yeah. And then there are features like the Overdrive.
Here we go. That's the Overdrive.
Demonstrating here. Like
that's new as well, kind of.
But in a way, also like a Housemarque staple. My first game here was the Resogun, and like the way Overdrive is at the very core of the moment-to-moment gameplay in Resogun. It now is basically like our healing mechanic in SAROS.
Because it heals?
No, by destroying enemies, you gain basically health drops. It's like your only question. Ask HouseMarque to do a heal kit, and this is what you get.
You blow stuff up, and then healing is a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Sure.
Do you? So when you use your Overdrive, because when you gain it, it's actively kind of told you that, if you do this, that's how you activate it. Do you usually use your instantly, or do you keep it and hold on to it?
So it really depends. So it has multiple uses. The most, or maybe fringe case, is to negate an enemy attack completely, because it clears out bullets within the vicinity and also, deals a load of damage. So this kind of leads nicely into, how to counter the shield, but maybe we'll get to that later.
Well, I had a question here, because...
But it is somewhat related to the Overdrive. So if I'm low health and there's a room with a bunch of enemies,
then you might as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense.
keep in mind that this is the biome where it was introduced. That's why I use it
That's
immediately.
true. That's true.
So this is where you get it for the very first time. And again, we onboard the player. We ask them to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes sense because then later on you'll learn how to use it. Here you just need to know that it's available now, and so on. But Henri, when it comes to depth of design, for example, let's take the shield, which is a new feature. How do you decide which features need to be deep designed features, and which features work better as simplistic as possible?
That's a pretty tricky question. So depth is not necessarily, or basically one of the guiding principle is the depth without complexity.
Right.
But it's very difficult to define as what feature is deep enough without like the implied complexity. So any feature we have in the game, especially a player-facing gameplay feature, has to be able to prove itself in a very short experience with the title, relying on the mechanic or the feature. So the player has to learn to trust the mechanic by just playing without over-explaining the point. That is both it's a blessing and a curse in the sense that we are very quickly informed when some feature is getting too complex to warrant the depth. So, but that also is a very difficult balancing space or a design problem to solve. So we have aspirations and we want to put as much stuff on the mechanics as we possibly can because we see how they link up nicely together. But in order for the feature to prove itself in the game, the basics have to sing the loudest first. And that I like I said earlier, it all boils down to the game needs to prove itself when you're playing it.
Are there any features that come to mind that deserved depth, like took a long time and you added a lot of things, and in the end the complexity doesn't have to be up front, but from a design perspective it has a lot?
Yeah, I mean the shield to me is the obvious one, but a very good example of something that might felt too complex but the depth wasn't inherently clear, but it ended up singing and fitting quite nicely into the game was the parry mechanic.
Right.
We can't really demonstrate it now, but
it's going to be unlocked later.
It's the biome after this one, but maybe we'll
jump around.
Talk about that a bit later. But for example, with the shield, naturally, like if you look at the problem it solves and the way it addresses kind of the whether to avoid or interact is the inherently it's a good place to be, but that also means that we have to have something that the shield is not the answer to. And that already is something we have established and realized earlier in forms of damage shapes, and like in Returnal we had the cursed bullets in the later biomes. Something has to counter the shield. Yeah,
you can't have like a clear all type of answer.
Exactly. So it design intuition wise, it is pretty obvious that yes, shield cannot be the answer to every question, but then contextualizing our Nova projectiles and corrupted projectiles and damage shapes and enemy melee attacks, you are stacking a lot of complexity before you as a player know what all those mechanics mean inherently.
Here we have the Halcyon introduced, and also Nightmare
Strand.
Yeah. So do you want to go take a look at that? I mean, it'd be kind of cool maybe to show that.
I wanted to, yeah. Let me just...
just a quick question.
Can I play it? And
sure.
You get to explain it.
Yeah, that would be nice. Let's switch back around.
I just want to check for the reload mapping. For some reason it's on R3. Do you know where to switch that?
Should be on the gameplay.
Yeah.
I don't know why it throws me off a lot because I'm not able to do the...
Is R2 not...
yeah, perfect reload. Cool.
Yeah. So it should be now...
So as Henri gets into the Nightmare Strand portion of the game, that's the final name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. So
trying to see the.
Mitja, as we're going into that, we're in the third biome right now.
Yeah.
This is sort of a break that if you have confidence, maybe your first playthrough, it says warning, high risk area, but how do you design these? Are these just for professional players who have at least 10 hours in and then you can dive into that, or would you recommend it to a newbie? You have to learn somehow. What's the thinking behind, splitting paths like this?
Yeah, so Nightmare Strands are optional challenge areas. High risk, high reward, that's the thinking behind them. So the first one you will encounter naturally is actually this one, in this biome. You can see 2 entrances earlier in the first and second biome, but they are gated by the abilities that you unlock later. So you can return to those areas at a later point in the flow. But this is the first one, and it's focused on combat encounters, as you can see. So
difficult combat encounters.
Difficult, unique combat encounters. Maybe introducing some enemies that you don't see in the biome itself. Maybe foreshadowing some harder enemies, and paying it off with a climactic encounter at the end. So you're locked into this area, and the rewards at the end are worth it, I would say. And the second chance, one of our biggest additions to the game. If you lost it during your biome run, this is the only way to recover it.
Right.
Yeah. So.
I mean, that seems fairly central as a reason.
So that's the big incentive, right? So even if you're not one of the best players of the game, if you feel like it would be good to get your second chance back before you continue, this is one way to attempt to do so.
And you get some artifacts there as well.
Yeah.
Corrupted ones.
Dash train cooldown. Favorite curse. Dash cooldown.
So, and this is a good point. We have a lot of these artifacts that, they shape the way you run, how you want to kind of take it from there, with the corruption aspects of it here as well. Are you guys are big into going with crazy, just stacking everything, or Henry, you have your favorites already? Do you avoid artifacts when you play?
Personally, no, but they are intended to make the player think a little what they should be picking up, because every artifact does imply power gain, but every artifact, when the eclipse is being triggered, or when you collect during the eclipse, will be cursed, and the curse effects are corrupted, and the corruption effects do stack. So I don't want to pick up too many corruption effects that increase my dash cooldown, because that is not a thing you want to do. But you can, if you are comfortable, you can collect a few, and that is kind of the balance we're trying to strike, where depending how you play and how you want to play, you can, with your play style, offset some of the penalties. And one of my favorite things we did here is that we intend you to have this very bite-sized, or not bite-sized, but meaty experiences one biome at a time. If I decide to chain a couple biomes together, every curse on those artifacts will be cleansed after defeating the boss at the end of the biome.
There you go.
So, Nightmare Strand in this
strategy.
Case, second chance replenished.
Awesome.
And amazing.
And all of these artifacts that I've collected, the cursed ones here, if I manage to beat the boss, and if I want to continue on,
then that yellow corrupted side of it will be cleared.
Yeah, and it's only just the flat attribute bonus.
Well, that's a big strategy point, I think. So that means that if you're comfortable and you know what you're doing, then you can strategize quite a bit.
Yeah. And as you saw, there is a limit to how many artifacts you can pick up, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So I don't pick up everything because of this limit, right? So I pay attention to what actually dropped, And then we also have, you might have noticed the redraw tokens that let you re-roll what artifact it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So sometimes I use that to make sure that I get something I really want.
Something that stacks better for what your current artifacts are otherwise giving you.
But they also have a use within here. You can use
What?
redraw tokens to remove the artifacts you don't feel comfortable running.
Oh.
So, for example, my dash cooldown is starting to feel a little. I think there's my... Yeah, I've stacked it twice now.
So it
Yeah.
feels uncomfortable because it's not active always when you need it. And
Because
therefore it's
your
really messing your
muscle
flow.
memory, yeah.
yeah.
Because that, like,
But that's the thing about this is that usually when people think about these, you know, even if it's RPG kind of elements, it usually adds to things that maybe people don't have to overly think about,
Mhm.
but they're not as zeroed in on gameplay aspects like your dash cooldown.
yeah.
Whereas this is a Housemarque game, so the way your dash feels is integral
Yes.
to your playstyle. So these are the attributes may be quite different from other genres and games you play, but then it will absolutely be essential to kind of what our games tend to favor, which is that speed, dashing, everything that comes to avoiding those bullets
Oh, for
or
sure.
collecting. Mitja, what do you think about, because first of all, these levels are pretty cool. And here we're getting a nice cannot leave area, solar cage.
So
Yeah.
nice.
Well, I like this one personally because it's the first place where the hook shot really comes to shine, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mm.
But what does it? What do you think about when you? Do you always think about how to direct the player through an environment? So visual cues and this kind of stuff, or are there other things that you, first and foremost, kind of try to gravitate towards?
Well, the challenge comes from trying to do many things the correct way, right? So we are gameplay first. So our priority, of course, is the second-to-second experience, right?
Yeah.
As level designers, we want to make sure that we enable the flow state, and that means that we are paying a lot of attention to the environments in terms of how they support enemy and player movement. So that's our top priority. And then the layer below that, right, is creating a repeatable structure. So we want to have, as discussed earlier, biomes are always different. Every time you play through a biome, it should feel different. So it's important to think about the variants. But then if you combine these 2 points already, you can see some challenges, because you don't want to leave it to pure randomness, because then the second-to-second might have too much downtime in some areas, right?
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes it's too intense. And therefore, we curate the experience with these moments in mind. So this was boss encounter at the end of the biome. So every biome will end with some kind of a boss encounter.
Yeah.
It's a skill check. We want to really test the player. They shouldn't be able to progress past these points without having their skills really tested, right? So
Yeah.
every biome will test.
So
their
you're
skills.
always thinking about the overall player journey and the player kit available to that specific moment.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
And
so
there will be a lot of deaths. It's a part of this.
There will be, yeah, and because this is the biome where we introduce the hook shot,
Yeah.
the boss fight
Should
features,
have,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but it makes sense that it was a central part of it.
So it's a big choke point before we let you progress, but then the players have an opportunity to raise their floor right through the perma progress upgrades here.
Well, this is another thing that ties into gameplay, and first, you know, of this scale to Housemarque as well. I know Henri has been a part of a lot of subsystems and meta progressions in some of our past games, but
Never to this degree.
never to this degree.
Yeah, so to fulfill the promise of really coming back stronger, this is basically how do we contextualize the progression in a meaningful way that both fits into, how do we as a stewards of gameplay also make sure that our character building or even like narrative elements are supported through the things that we repeat in our second-to-second experience loop. So you asked earlier about, isn't this what we did in Returnal in terms of the collecting Cuberium? Yes, like in Returnal, it's all about transient progress. Like your run is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
But here you're bringing back a haul from the run. So
you're collecting that loosenite. You're kind of...
That's like the measure of how well I did. And you have always access to your cycle summary. So we know what killed me. We know how long the run lasted. And
it was a rabdom.
Yeah.
Almost like random.
That's one of the enemies that I worked on. I'm super proud of how he ruined me. Anyways, but yeah, like reinforcing the idea that you do lose something when you die. The death penalty carved out quite a slice out of my what would be my haul, but we still got something out of it, and we got Halcyon out of it. So Halcyon, something you will never take away from you. They're the purplish nodes, and they are, basically measuring the one way to both gate, but also highlight some of the more important upgrades in the game. So in this case, do we have another?
And we don't need to go too deep into the progress system. I'm sure players will have lots of fun.
Oh, for sure. But I guess my final point about the supporting elements like the world building and narrative, it all boils down to even things like what are attributes called.
Yeah.
And how they also manifest in origin as characteristics of it.
This is a fun part of the whole lore.
Oh, yeah.
That most of our games have some hidden messages into it,
absolutely.
But Returnal kind of took it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And even with the previews of SAROS, it was wonderful to see that those people who had some early access, they started already looking at the naming conventions and what does that mean, and maybe there's a hidden meaning here and there. So I think it's wonderful to have those, but then have players expect some of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So even you look at naming conventions and you're like instantly thinking, well, this is what they're telling me, but what are they not telling me? So that to me is something that especially games have a unique perspective. They can do this kind of stuff because it is such a different way you're interacting, and you can affect that interaction.
There's a lot of emergent storytelling and a lot of world building, right, to create an experience like this. It's not only about telling the story through the cinematics.
No,
it's much more than that.
Yeah, I would say a huge majority of this world building and story comes from moments like this where you're looking at it and you're starting to dissect all the elements. But that's why also I think how you create the player journey is very much a part of the narrative.
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. In true Housemarque fashion, right, we don't want the player to keep waiting for too long. We want to bring them back to the action as soon as we can. So our cinematics are snappy as they can be. We don't want to get in the way of the fun. But like you said, level design and gameplay can do a lot to support the narrative ambitions as well. It's not only how we dress our spaces, everything from how the enemies behave, how the armor matrix is designed, everything builds into the bigger, grander world that we are creating.
Yeah. And this is quite a unique, Arjun-facing story, and this world clearly is, a part of that. So it's sort of a self-discovery, but also, everything discovery. at the same time. But Mitja, do you have anything new that really, something central that you felt like was unique in this particular case? Because
In this area?
well, maybe this area, but maybe even beyond this area, because you're getting into a lot more cool new things. It's not early game. Like early game is a lot of very grounded stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then, where did you think that it started getting a bit crazy, or something that felt even different? Because now we're getting the hook shots, we're getting the overdrives, but then once you go beyond, did your design philosophy change at all because of the things you had to implement, or was it like a linear progression that you knew exactly what was upcoming, or was there any surprises?
Oh yeah, like the true nature of game development, right? There's a lot of iteration and a lot of refinement. You are kind of finding the fun as you're building the game, and you wanna keep an open mind.
Yeah.
So even though our starting point was very strong, looking back at Returnal, that's a great base to start with, right? The game was fun, and just to build on top of that, it's a great opportunity. But then we knew we wanted to expand in a couple of areas, and there are areas you already talked about with the shield and the second chance and the perma progression. And then on our side, it's also about how we invite the players into this world, right? We don't want to be too punishing in the early stages. We want to give them an opportunity to learn how to play the game. Then
kind of settle into it.
Yeah, be a bit kinder to them, right? Yes, you will still die. Yes, you will have to learn how to play the game. We have the skill checks, but we also are very specific about how we introduce new threats in the experience, and we want to make sure that from every run you get something, not necessarily only the Lucenite, right, but also some knowledge about...
Knowledge is good.
Yeah, knowledge is a resource as well.
Yeah.
And we talked about these amazing vista shots, right? That was also very fundamental part of the player journey.
Yeah.
And we have more biomes. That was a big challenge to make sure that we can create an expansive journey throughout the experience. And then we want to make sure that every biome feels different.
Of course, and looks a bit different.
So it's not only about them looking differently, also about them playing differently. So structurally, they have to feel different. We want to introduce new enemies. We want to introduce new hazards. So a lot of things that go into.
And unapologetically, it's a game.
It's a game.
And games usually have variety in terms of the levels and the biomes. Now, the question I have in my mind is pacing. Because let's say that Returnal was a lesson that was really all about overcoming immense odds against you. Now, that means that the pacing ramped up quite fast in terms of the level of skill and everything. But here, let's say there's a more gradual incline. But then the pacing itself has a bit more of those you can take your time moments as well, like with the vistas. But how do you feel that, is Arjun more of a... is there something to his pacing that is unique to him or to this story that we're telling here?
Well, from my point of view, the experience is a bit more compressed. There is less downtime, I would say. So the big focus was to create these opportunities for the player to just pick up and play and have a session that lasts between 15 and 30 minutes. And if they want to and there they should still bring something out of their playtime, right?
Yeah.
So it is compressed, I would say, more fast-paced in many areas than before.
So the second-to-second pacing might feel very familiar,
Yeah.
but then the session-to-session pacing is
Is-
on a cycle that you can actually have in your day-to-day life, and there is a save function at launch.
Yeah, very
Which-
important to mention that as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't have been if we had it in the launch for Returnal, but
Yeah.
now that the history has written its pages,
And
it's good to mention.
And I think it leads to the game feeling it's very hard to put down, because you're just
One more chance, huh?
Yeah, one more run.
Yeah.
It's very engaging. This run lasted 15 minutes, the next one 20 minutes, and then even though the sessions are shorter, you might end up playing for longer than in
That's
Returnal.
That's the curse of roguelikes in my book, because whenever I play this
No.
cross genres, it's kind of like, well, maybe my pickups this time will be better. This kind of mentality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And by the way, Henry, I love the way you did that, dashing away and then turning around to do the hook shot.
Yeah.
You can see that it's not your first time playing, but now it looks like your first time playing.
I can see my health bar because someone's standing in front of it. Not that it really matters. Like I
No,
was
no.
really fumbling. I couldn't generate enough power. I wasted my overdrive sooner.
Maybe if Mitja wants to play, Henry can take some questions again.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You can. I mean, you were able to talk quite well. I'm just saying.
No, yeah,
maybe we switch it up.
one of the main things over at Housemarque is to, we need to. How do we validate our game is by playing it, and
Well, that's a good jump-off point to asking Henry. How much have you been playing this game? Do you see it in your sleep?
yeah, of course.
Of
But
course.
at the same time, I've always maintained it. It's a massive privilege to get to work on
What-
something you want to play yourself.
Can you explain what the auto hit enabled means?
Oh yeah, so we're earlier talking about all fires and how they're now part of the weapon and how weapons are characterized by that. So what we also learned from Returnal is that player doesn't. What are like the fun parts of the combat, and what we conventionally find really fun in action and shooting games is the aspect of shooting, but what is the type of shooting gameplay that fits a Housemarque game the best? It is not necessarily this very slow-paced, line up your shots, execute, and see the heads pop or whatever. So in SAROS, we're actually, for the player, we're constantly contextualizing what the weapon or the aiming is doing in form of this auto-aim mechanic. But Mitja here has a weapon that's alt-fire actually might disable. Can you show me the equipment? Is this the console variant? No,
Yeah.
Smart Rifle has the...
And you can turn off the rumble again. I
Yeah.
think
Mm.
somehow it got.
No, you kind of need the trigger feedback for the power weapon gameplay.
True.
So that's actually like I'm saying
Central-
with confidence, we need to basically fix the bug in a way where we still let you keep the adaptive trigger settings without triggering the response setting on the shooting button. Just a mental note. Anyways, so auto aim enable and or disable the
Auto hit.
Auto hit. Sorry, it.
No, it's good because now we're clarifying.
Yeah,
terminology.
exactly. So this is not auto aim. It basically you need to put in the work as a player still to frame the enemy within your field of view.
Because in the end, if I'm a player
Yeah.
and I hear a certain word like auto aim, my
Oh, yeah,
my
for
brain tells me like, no, I'm not a loser. I don't need auto
Oh
aim.
yeah, no.
But in the end, what it's giving me as a player is a much more robust toolkit
Yes.
to attack and the way I play, because then some of those corruptions take that away too, right?
No, actually, we never take that away. It's always a player choice. So certain weapons don't have the auto hit capability at all, and they are
Right.
what we call the weak point machines. That's where all the gameplay is on the player. So
So in the end, you would say that if there's a basic type of duality of builds, it's either you like to aim and make that your kind of thing, or you like to move around and focus a bit less on the aiming.
Yeah, so like mobility is always the key. That's like where everything starts with both Returnal and SAROS. What we're doing in SAROS differently compared to Returnal is that we're very like upfront how the target acquisition works under the hood. So the next time Mitja, for example, gets an enemy on the screen, you can see the basically like a fighter UI elements, fighter style. It's telling you where your projectiles are gonna go, and the closer at the screen or closer at the center of the screen your target is, your weapon is more accurate. But there is still this like very generous target acquisition for the bullets, but it is applied like before. It's just where the spread of the cone, for example, of the weapon goes. So you still, as a player, have agency over putting more bullets on a target if you're playing with an assault rifle, for example. But with the single shot weapons, we do want, because there's a variant for like one of the bowguns, for example.
Which we're using right now.
Actually, no. A variant that relies on the weak points.
This is the bowgun, but not that variant.
That variant, yes.
Fun question for you at this point. Our genre stems from the historical bullet hell Danmaku type of games. We're choosing to call it bullet ballet, which I think is a little evolution of where that's come from. Now, those are bullets that the enemies are shooting. Are we still shooting bullets too?
As a player?
Yeah. Okay, so we have two types of bullets. We have protagonist bullets and enemy bullets.
Yeah. Very much.
Just clarifying.
Yeah. No, for sure. So, I think...
Because there's a lot of bullets on screen, so it's good to kind of know which bullets.
Oh, for sure. But especially with the power weapons and with the variant that Mitja is now using, what's the dev name is a spore thrower. So I wonder if the Disparator. Yeah. Disparator is our...
Which is one of my favorites because it gives you those little spawn things that stick around. And I can be a cautious player. And I think this power weapon allows me to go shoot and then leave the scene and hope until I hear things pop.
Yeah.
Kind of take my distance.
But yeah, to your question about the different play styles, I think the aiming is just a part of the play style. So certain weapons, we know that the fun of that weapon is not in micro adjustments of the aim or the stick. But for some weapons, it is the defining aspect of it. So we've always been very good at HouseMarque, like realizing what works for our type of gameplay. But there is always like power in looking at how different conventions have manifested and why they have become the conventions. For example, the left trigger being the now you are more accurate but moves more slowly but have a lower FOV type of experience.
The aim down sights
type of experience. So what we're doing is for the weapons that don't need that experience at all, we're using that for the alt fire experience.
Yeah.
Or defining. So for example, with the repeater bowgun that Mitja is using, it's a charge-based weapon, but you can fire it earlier by releasing. But if you charge it to the maximum, it adds more projectiles it shoots these like big planes of bullets that can hit multiple targets. But if you hold alt fire and fire, it's harder now without the actual threshold.
Yeah.
So it shoots these payload arrows that actually work against larger group of enemies.
Right.
Where they,
And in the end, none of that is like explained to you fully, but once you start testing it out and seeing how things go, and the menus and the equipment stuff actually, even there, it's alluded to sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. We explain what the mechanics are. So in this case, for example, the alt fire is the solution, but because we disabled the trigger settings, it's Mitja would have to like feel when the alt fire setting is activated.
Right, exactly.
So can't really demo it, but that would be like the perfect case for the alt fire versus the main fire mode.
Now, Henri, quick question to you. Because this is such a successor to Returnal's legacy, how do you feel that the technology has allowed you to create very unique things? Because the alt fire and the actual haptics of the controller and the DualSense, without that you couldn't be making these designs.
So
right?
yeah, without the adaptive triggers of the like the DualSense, I don't think alt fire or power weapons would exist in the way they are. So it was literally the first thing I set out to prototype when we got our hands on the Bond, the dev name for the DualSense. Where can we even say that? Hopefully, maybe.
It's been 5 years.
Sure. Literally the first thing.
Or more.
Seeing the blueprint of the actual controller, how it's supposed to work, then getting the tools to finally test it. First thing tested with that was to move basically a power shot function behind it as a new separate weapon. And
were you thinking even then, like, this is all about simplicity of design?
Yeah, like it didn't cross my mind until that was the option presented. So to me, this is very subjective, and different players, different designers feel about it very differently. But to me, for example, it's the best state communicator we can have on the controller. Like, it's quite sublime in that, where alt fire in Returnal was a state. It's an aiming state before it is output, where R2 is the output. So
that feels like a fairly big change still, even though it's an incremental step into what we have now in SAROS.
Oh yeah.
It's still fundamentally quite different from what Returnal was birthed with,
Yeah, the question it now poses is that, okay, so what is the benefit from having these state that does not adhere to a cooldown, or it doesn't need to be revolve around cooldown, but this mechanic that the player can basically scale and upgrade through their attributes. So the more control you have, the more power you have, i.e. more times you can fire your power weapon. So automatically we're in this presented with a new gameplay scenario where the player is spending more time in the state where they are aiming and engaging with their power weapon. But at the same time, it is a very safe design space to be in, because it's not too far removed from what we do here on like normal primary fire, run around strafe, hip fire mode. But it is still, compared to Returnal, a very different and unique problem. Yeah. Because balancing and other scaling implications aside, alone, it's a lot too.
Now, a question, I think maybe this is a good wrap-up question to both of you.
Yeah, my boy killed you.
I'm not that.
Oh yeah, coming back.
How do you marry the designs from each one of yours perspective? Because Mitja, you have the level design, which is, setting the play field, and then Henri, you have the tools, you have the kits, the weapons, and all these things. Do you guys hang out all day long and just kind of try to marry those things to make sure that the fusion is exactly that, or do you just need to communicate as well as you can? What goes into that process?
While I would love to hang out with Henri all day long, that's just not possible.
No.
So it goes into very clear communication, right? We have to be very precise. Good design is subjective.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe things that you feel when you play a game, and that's the skill that you have to develop, and I think Henri is excellent in it. So it's about being able to communicate clearly and consistently about your ideas.
I guess common lexicon and terminology helps a bit, because if, let's say, you guys come from very different backgrounds, then maybe you need a lot of work to get the things across.
I mentioned earlier, like +1 to everything that Mitja said, and we speak the same language. That's why we work well together. It's because it always boils down to the sensibilities. Like, what are you here to do? Are you here to make the best Housemarque game possible or the best game possible? To us, it's the same thing, but it is a thing you learn by working here, that you embody or you start to internalize what it actually means to make a good Housemarque game, which then turns into one of the best games ever made. And
well,
in my opinion,
of course.
But like that's the aspiration and that's the goal. So like, it is if we don't get to sync every day, it's important that our teams are speaking the same language, and the complexity without depth is as well understood among everyone as possible, and what responsive gameplay means, and how do we facilitate and manifest that. And it's not to say that these sensibilities wouldn't be open to like change, because they are. Like, we already proved with Returnal that Housemarque sensibilities translate really well into 3D space, like 3D action game, where the camera is behind the player character. But even that game, and during that game, things like the alt fire and framing of the camera alone were like things we were really wrestling with until the last minutes. So every game is a new iteration to make also the sensibilities and the principles we built these things around better. Like, they have to be taken as opportunity how to move these things forward.
Yeah.
And in the end, one of the most critical things is just to sit down together and play the game together, right?
Exactly.
So you are looking at the same thing, and you are talking about what you see, and you're talking about what you feel, and you're trying to figure out why something doesn't feel as perfect as it should for we have high standards.
That's
sometimes good. Well, most of the time we are stuck on the tiniest of details, right? Just trying to figure out what we can do to make it just a tiny bit better.
But I think that's exactly the kind of nuance that fans of these games want to hear about, is that what goes on in the day-to-day of a Housemarque developer, how obsessed are they with each minute detail, and then what do they kind of, in the end of the day, you come around and you really cherish certain aspects, and that seems to be, that we're making games, and we're making kinds of games that at least we know how to now communicate the nuances of that, and just to take pride in the fact that, yes, it's different, but again, it's the kind of different that we're really excited to do and push, I guess, even beyond our own comfort zones, to make sure that there's always something new to look forward to. And no matter how much people say that this is a copy-paste Returnal, you kind of, at least when you take on the challenge, it comes very clear that, initially it might feel like that, but then the nuances really will educate you otherwise. That there's lots here hidden beneath the surface. Returnal reference again, hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah.
But thank you, Mitja, thank you, Henri. I think this game will have lots of people playing it and feeling that games can be cool and can be actiony and can have new aspects to them. So really appreciate you guys sitting down and taking a look at this awesome game that you guys have created.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
We've been using some debug commands here. We probably should have used God mode, though.
No, that's...
No, I know.
Yeah.
Miguel could have used. But yeah, the green dot is the upper right corner is for the dev build, and the debug commands being something we can basically... This is what we need for iteration. So we need to test on target, but on target we need some debug commands so we can teleport around and test different biomes, different weapon compositions, etc.
It's only available to us.
Unless we make a mistake and patch it in.
Well...
Which we would never do.
Well, again. No, just kidding.